Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Point. It is a Tuesday, and boy, do we have a Tuesday for you because there is a lot going on in the sports world today. We are going to get into all of it. What aren't we going to talk about today? Shamus Fillmore is joining me. So, per usual, we will get into the NHL of it. He's a Leaf fan. We got to get into the Leaf drama. I touched on it yesterday. I will touch on it again today because it's the Leafs, and there's more rumors with a new head coach coming into town. Could that work? Is that a viable solution for the team with this new head coach? I personally, we'll touch on. I'm going to save that opinion. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. So we'll touch on that in just a second. Because Shamus will be joining me. Shamus will be joining me in just a few minutes here to get into a lot of things. But also today we got World Series was rained out last night. So no World Series last night. We got Game 3 tonight. It is no longer Noah Syndergaard. It's now Ranger Suarez. Because of the extra day, Suarez will pitch against Lance McCullers Jr. Game 3 tonight in Philadelphia. Today's also the NFL trade deadline. We got some trades already that went through. I touched on the Roquan Smith trade yesterday from the Chicago Bears to the Baltimore Ravens. But we got a couple trades today that are just completely perplexing. For me, I don't really understand them. We'll talk about them today, and we'll talk about any other breaking trades that we get because we got a little over 40 minutes before the deadline. So what's going to happen between now and then before we get to the trade deadline? What happens with all these teams and players on the move? And then there's this team called the Brooklyn Nets. And they just can't stay out of the headlines. They can't stay out of the news. And despite winning a game last night against the Indiana Pacers, and they did everything they could to lose that game last night, it was announced just about an hour ago that their head coach, Steve Nash, great Canadian boy, and the organization have decided to part ways. They both agreed to part ways, which is parting ways is it's a nice term for you're fired. Although I do think Steve Nash is happy to be fired in this case. I think he's okay with being let go from the organization. But yes, Steve Nash is fired. Brooklyn is now moving on. We got rumors of who their next head coach will be. I want to save that for when Shamus joins, and I want to share that with all of you because I don't know if he's read who the next head coach might be, who they're working on getting a deal done with. It might come to shock him. With Brooklyn, this choice does not surprise me whatsoever because they got a bunch of clowns running that organization. Also today, Browns, a.k.a. the Cleveland Clowns, beat the Cincinnati Bengals last night. Nick Chubb continues to do Nick Chubb-type things, and that's win games. That's run the football, and he currently leads the NFL in rushing, just ahead of Derrick Henry, who is number 2. But he's got the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. He's the best pure running back in the NFL, period, is Nick Chubb. And not to mention just a Browns defense that came to play last night, and it keeps them in the playoff hunt. And really what this team is hoping to do, they have a bye week, and then they have week 10. They're playing the Miami Dolphins, and then they go and they go into week 11 where Deshaun Watson is eligible to return. So if they can stay in proximity of the playoffs by the time he returns, I'm sure the organization believes that they can get themselves in a position to be competitive to see if they can make the playoffs, things of that nature. Sickening stuff that you're banking on Deshaun Watson coming back, that's the solution, that he's the answer to all these problems, makes me sick, quite frankly. And later in the show, I want to share a story about LeBron James. I'm going to write that down. I don't want to forget this. This is something that I read this weekend. I didn't bring it up yesterday. I forgot to. And I remembered this morning. I really remembered last night because I was watching the Browns game. I have a big issue with LeBron James, and I want to address it in this show. It's got nothing to do with the Lakers. Has nothing to do with Russell Westbrook. Has nothing to do with the shitty play of that team. This is all about LeBron James and a stance he decided to come open and honest about this weekend that really makes me question his morals, his ethics, and just him as a person. So lots to get into. Lots to get into today. So much happening in the sports world. When Shamus joins, I don't know where I'm going to start. But I look around the sports world and it's crazy, right? There's so much happening. There's so much to dive into. And there's all these crazy teams, the Lakers, the Nets. They do things unorthodox. They're not great teams. They have special players, but they do stupid things all the time. So it makes you question, their viability and what they're doing to get better. But then there's also stories around the NBA that are and the sports world that are really good stories. The Utah Jazz, a team that was meant to be tanking, and they likely would be a bad team by the end of the season, won another game last night against the Memphis Grizzlies. They dominated the Memphis Grizzlies, and now they have beaten Memphis. They have beaten Portland. They have beaten the Golden State Warriors. The Utah Jazz are 6-2 on the season. They traded Rudy Gobert. They traded Donovan Spider Mitchell, and Utah it remains one of the best teams in the NBA coming into the first 10 games of the season. Positive story. In the Eastern Conference, a good story is the Cleveland Cavaliers. It looks like trading for Donovan Mitchell was a good ad. He's averaging 33 points a game. They are 5-1. They've beaten the Boston Celtics in Boston. They play later this week, which should be a fun game. But the Cavs making that trade with Evan Mobley, with the way they move the ball, really good story. My Sacramento Kings comeback win last night in Charlotte. They fought their way to their second win of the season. They're 2-4. They're back in after losing their first four. They've won 2 in a row. Not quite as popular, not quite mainstream, but hey, it's a story. It's out there. I might be the only one talking about it. But hey, I need to be the only one talking about it for it to be a story, in my opinion. Tyrese Maxey in the NBA is having a great start. Pascal Siakam looks like an elite player for the Raptors. The Raptors crushed the Atlanta Hawks last night. So there are positive things in the sports world, despite all the negativity, despite all the crappy people that exist in the sports world. And I can be a bad part of this. I talk about bad ownerships. I talk about players that I just don't think are good people. And I can dwell into the negative. I spew negative. I learned this in journalism when I was in school. The more interesting a story is far more interesting when you take a negative angle. Writing a puff piece or writing a positive story is not that fun for the writer or for the reader. Just think about your experience and what you're going to click on. Here's an example. Toronto Maple Leafs over the last 48 hours, people are reading. My dad is telling me every other day there's a new theory that this coach is coming in, they're doing this, and it's all negative. This player needs to come out, this coach needs to be fired, and you're wishing evil onto people. You're wishing for a person to lose their job. But they're negative pieces. It's saying what's wrong with a team. Where if there was a positive piece about how great Nick Robertson was playing, and Nick Robertson was the second coming of Christ, and he was the savior for the Maple Leafs in their bottom six, I'm just going to give my two. I'm not reading that piece. No, I didn't read the conspiracy theory piece about the next head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think a lot of people would before they read the pup piece about Nick Robertson, because who cares? Right? Leaf fans, do you care about the pup piece about Nick Robertson? You're going to read that one on The Athletic? You're going to read that one on tsn.ca? I'm not. Doesn't interest me. I don't want to read a pup piece about a player that I know is not that good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. As we're going through lots of news coming in, The Ottawa Senators, here's some breaking news, Ottawa reportedly retains New York-based investment bank to sell franchise. So the Ottawa Senators are going to go up for sale. Last year, Eugene Melnyk passed away. His children currently own the franchise. They are reportedly going to sell the team. So new ownership in the National Hockey League likely coming. Interesting to see if who will swoop in and take that franchise. I saw today on Forbes that the Toronto Maple Leafs remain the richest franchise in the National Hockey League, worth about $2.35 billion. As crazy as it sounds, Ottawa, with all their dysfunction, the shitty rink, all their situations, they will be worth over $1 billion. Whoever buys that team will be paying at least $1 billion for that franchise. And you got to find a new rink, you got to do a whole bunch of stuff, and you still got to pay $1 billion. That's life. Got to pay to play, unfortunately. And see, we got our guest on the line. He looks like a combination of the Manning family today, with a quarter zip, the hair done real well. He looks straight from the Manning cast. It is Shamus Fillmore. Shay, good to see you, and I like the look today.
Appreciate that, friend. Yeah, I was just coming back from a client, so had to do my best to doll up a little bit, show them why they pay all that money to have me there.
Right. So when you go meet clients, is it business casual, or do you sometimes feel like the need to wear a suit, or does it depend on the client that you're seeing?
The rule of thumb, and a really good manager who I started out gave me this. He says you never want to overdress the person you're working for or working with, because it makes them feel inferior, or makes them think that you feel inferior to them. So I always feel it out, but for the most part, yeah. And I mean, I work with a lot of manufacturing and rough and grouty clients, so often it's kind of just like a business casual / like khakis and maybe like a polo shirt, and that's usually kind of the vibe. That's what I'm going with today. So that's a little 101. That's a little business 101 for you folks over listening to TPP right now.
I like it. So with me, that's why you wear a lot of sweaters, right?
That's why I usually dress. Yeah, I'm coming down to your level. I'm dressing well. You, most of the time, you're overdressing me, because you often have a button-up shirt on, and I'm the one in either a dirty jersey or like a t-shirt or something. So
fair enough.
Yeah. But I gotta ask, are you Mr. Nature now? Are you the nature boy with your hike? I was listening to you yesterday talk about getting lost in the woods and finding yourself, and what the meaning of life is. What was going on there?
Yeah, I don't know about the meaning of life, but I did get lost. That is 100% true. And, it was good. I like being in nature, I guess. I guess I could put it that way. It was a good time. I didn't worry about not being able to get out, and maybe I should have more, because it was an hour and a half of being alone in the woods and not seeing any other human beings. But it's just, when you're outside, you're breathing in the air. It's a good feeling. I think you get tied up to like playing golf for you. You're outside for a long period of time, and you're away from your responsibilities. You're away from life's pain in the asses, if you will, and you're just there doing whatever for that period of time, and you're not really thinking about anything other than what's in front of you.
All I gotta say is that you're lucky you didn't meet the next Jeffrey Dahmer outside, walking around the forests and with a baseball bat, because something can happen. But anyways, I guess moral of the story is don't go chasing waterfalls. So that's good.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta creep and have some fun. I'm sure you've seen the news today about the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh yes, every day.
Yeah, fair enough. Every day. But today's news so far, Steve Nash has been, they put it in nicer terms, but fired by the Brooklyn Nets after a win last night, getting to 2-5 over the sorry Indiana Pacers. But Shay, your instant reaction to Steve Nash being let go, and kind of everything happening in Brooklyn right now?
I think it's a major overreaction by the organization to fire. Like, what is this going to do? Are they going to bring somebody in and automatically turn it around? No, I don't think so. I think this team was basically run by their players from the beginning. You think Kyrie Irving's taking orders from? No, like Kyrie Irving's going to do what Kyrie wants to do on and off the floor, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. And same with Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant's an exceptional player. He doesn't have to be coached. Now, there is other guys on this team that probably do look for guidance and, appreciate somebody being able to move them around and being a floor general like he was. Steve Nash probably could have done that. But at the end of the day, if your star players don't respect you, which we found out much throughout the summer, there was issues all summer long. So it was like, I feel like it was going into the season, okay, if you get off to a great start, bang, that's right on. You got the job. But they were looking for any reason to get him out of there. So I think that's kind of why you see this so short. I mean, less than 10 games. Wow, that's not good. I mean, saying this, maybe there's something similar to what we'll talk about later with the Leafs and their coaching situation. But no, what was your initial reaction? Were you surprised? Were you not surprised?
I was surprised because they won last night. I thought if they
It's
lost, we could
strange.
do this. Yeah, after like fire him on the weekend, there was like that would have got the heat off of Kyrie Irving and his diatribe Saturday night, which we will get into here in a minute. But I was surprised with the timing of it. But my main thought was I was happy for Steve Nash. He is going to get paid to not coach that team.
Oh.
And all those egos, as you just talked about, but mainly Kyrie Irving. I don't know what it would be like to deal with him on a daily basis, but I think it could only hurt your mental health and it could only hurt your intelligence. I would lose it with him. I know myself, me and him would be in a fist fight. I'd be on the ground knocked out, but anyway, I would get my point across. I think for Steve Nash, it's a blessing for him, but I also think it's really weak by the organization, Shay, because as you recall, Kevin Durant said, "Hey, I want to be traded unless Steve Nash is fired." So now it looks like you acquiesce to a player's demands 7 games into a new season where it's 7 games. It's 7 games. Like you can quickly turn this around. I don't expect the Lakers to finish 1-81. They got their first win the other night. I expect them to be competitive. You think the Pacers are going to keep winning games? You think the Wiz are going to keep finding? I mean, Utah, sure, maybe they're going to be surprised and be competitive the whole year. I don't know, but it's an 82-game grind, and Joe Harris hasn't played in a full year, and Seth Curry's just coming back now. He played his first game Saturday night. They're playing without a whole lot of pieces that can help this team. Cam Thomas, another I really like that hasn't played this year, so. He didn't really get a fair chance, Steve Nash, with the whole roster.
Yeah, I agree. It's one thing to dog a team when they have every single piece and they're all firing on full cylinders, but they weren't. And we'll get we'll get to him later. Kyrie's playing really good right now, which is kind of is a demonic thing about him. Is it seems whenever he's in the media and making these scrums, he seems to still play really well, which is interesting. But yeah, like you said about the Kevin Durant thing, like it just looks like the organization's answering to their players instead of their players answering to them, which, I mean, you could say the same thing last year with Irving and the anti-vax. I mean,
right.
If you were an organization, you say, no, you're getting vaccinated or, we'll trade you / let you go. This way, it's like, okay, well, we're just going to bend our rules around our players because we don't have any other options. And that's the way it's got to be. I mean, let's recap Nash's career, I guess. He made it to the playoffs both years. Yes, they didn't get swept last year, but they made it to a second round the first year he was there. Do you see him getting hired by a different team? Do you think he's, comes back as management level role, or do you think he tries again as a coach?
I could see him in a management type role, but I could also see him not coaching again. Just because he owns the Vancouver Whitecaps already. I think he loves soccer, and I think he'd get involved in another soccer organization, potentially do some stuff with maybe Canada Soccer or something to that manner.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he loved coaching. I don't think it was his. How could you? I think this experience could really ruin it for him. And again, he's pride of Canada. I think he's our best Canadian basketball player of all time. He's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's a two-time MVP. I mean, the guy is decorated as it gets. So I think whatever he does, he'll find something to keep him busy. But I think right now he needs some time to decompress and just
I agree. Yeah.
get over this experience.
Yeah, I'd be discouraged. I mean, if that was the first time you gave that an effort, and unfortunately you got no, well, it seems like you got less respect from your players. You also got to watch Ben Simmons miss layup after layup, night in, night out, and take awful fouls.
Right.
It would make your original or your initial coaching experience very, very frustrating. I almost wish he would have coached a younger team and then maybe back into a team. That way he would have created some experience himself. But yeah, I see him back in the NBA at some point. I think that he gives it another go. He seems, I mean, he's got a great basketball mind, and I just think that this was unfortunately it's kind of like Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd was here for a little bit. That didn't go well either. So maybe coaches aren't meant to coach these kind of high level players in this type of organization that favors the players more than its coaching staff.
Right. It had when he got hired, it had the Steve Kerr vibe because Brooklyn was kind of on the rise and they had just gotten Durant and they got Irving, similar to with Steph and Clay and everything that they were building in Golden State. They fired Mark Jackson and they brought in Steve Kerr, and it couldn't have went polar opposite. I mean, Steve Kerr's had ultimate success. He's going to be a Hall of Famer as a coach. He's going to go in as a coach. He's won 4 championships, and there's been little to no drama minus Draymond in Golden State since Steve Kerr's got there. Mm-hmm. Where I think Steve Nash could have had a similar path, but he was just dealing with, let's be honest, more selfish people. Where Golden State, I think it's about the team. It's not about who gets the most credit. It's not about give me the ball. And you're dealing with so many more factors in Brooklyn that just aren't about basketball, which is tough to win with.
Mm-hmm. And who's replacing Nash from this team? Has it been said yet, or
we haven't heard yet who they're targeting? Here, I saved this. This is fun for me. So they're targeting a person outside the organization.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a few hints and see if you can figure it out. Let's just say you know him very well.
I know him very well. Doc Rivers?
Warm.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, not Udoka. Really?
Brooklyn is planning to hire Ime Udoka, who's currently suspended by the Boston Celtics.
Can you do that if you're suspended? Because he's not technically fired.
He's suspended by the Boston Celtics, so technically he's free to go anywhere he wants.
Wow, that is huge news.
Yeah.
I think that would ultimately split ties with the Boston organization, but he would be a public enemy number one in, I would say, the New England region if that were to happen. Wow, that'd be a move. Yeah. Send that guy to the Big Apple. There could be more problems than just what he's into already. I mean, at the end of the day, I think he's a good coach, but unfortunately for him, he didn't put up with those issues when he was in Boston. I mean, Tatum's got a personality, but I don't think he's got a above life personality or someone who's going to cause a lot of problems, and nor does the rest of the players, because you have guys like Al Horford and other veterans who kind of humble everybody in their experiences. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know how he'd be able to handle it. I don't think it'd be the right move personally for his career, but at the same time, he's a decorated coach at this point. In his 1 year, he's been there.
Yeah, it's interesting because you bring more chaos to a pool of chaos. Ime Udoka and all his, I mean, you're suspended with another team, and another team might hire you. I mean, that just sounds so crazy, but it's so Brooklyn at the same time that they're the ones doubling down and saying, you know what, let's bring him in. I agree that he's a great coach. If anybody can fix Ben Simmons, it might be Udoka. I'm not saying Ben Simmons is going to shoot, but I don't know if you picked up the live mic the other night, Shay. Even if you didn't watch the game, it was on SportsNet or the next morning. Kyrie Irving was literally yelling at Ben Simmons to shoot the
I
ball,
saw that.
and he did not. Like, he is so afraid. His over-unders on FanDuel are now down to 6.5 points. I mean, that is
Ridiculous.
you go the under every
You
time.
slammed the under. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
hammer it. It's craziness because I think he's incredibly skilled, but even his defense isn't that great because they're giving up 128 points a game per average
Exactly.
so far this season. So, to me, for Brooklyn to be a real contender, he's the key. He's the one that can unlock it for them. Maybe Udoka can do it, but I mean, you can't fix somebody's brain. If they're not willing to shoot and they are limited, I don't. There's only so much you can do. Not like you, and you mentioned earlier, he's fouling everybody. His defense stinks right now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why they got rid of Steve Nash because he's a disher and he's like, no, we need someone who's going to be more of a scorer mentality to get this guy going. No, I mean that you're right. I think Ben Simmons ultimately, at the end of the day, it's his confidence and his decision making that's going to be able to affect this team in a positive light. Because, like I said earlier, Kyrie Irving's off the handle right now. He's playing 40 minutes a game. He's scoring 30 points a game, and he's playing effectively. Kevin Durant is still chipping in like the All Star we know he is, and Ben Simmons just needs to kind of slide in between there. He doesn't have to be a 20, 30-point guy.
Mhm.
Most of his career, when he was at his best, he was only averaging 16 to 17 points, but he's also contributing on the defensive end. He's being a ball handler, and he's doing everything else defensively, rebounding, and we just haven't seen that complete package yet from him. And I think you're right. I mean, for him, what does he have to lose by shooting or by driving and making plays? Nothing at this point because your team. It's not like your team's doing well, so you're not going to fracture any part of that success. Like you need to try something new in order for your team to start winning.
You played basketball growing up, and you were a good basketball player. And I
Man,
know just playing 21 and different games with you, you had your favorite spots on the floor.
mm-hmm.
Like, I knew when I was guarding you, and I knew you were going to shoot because I knew that's your spot, and I couldn't do
Predictable.
much about it, but I tried to get there. So, what would you tell Ben Simmons? Like, pick a spot on the floor and kind of shoot, like, just to get at least have a feel that you have a spot that you can shoot the ball. Because right now it's nowhere. Like, would you just say
Yeah,
master
I
the free throw, or what would your advice be to him on just that kind of that
oh
block?
yeah. I mean, every player should be mastering the free throw, but if you drive as much as Ben Simmons, which he tends to drive a lot and create contact and dish it out, yeah, you should be practicing the free throw. But on top of that, I mean, he's tall enough that whoever's guarding him would have a hard time getting a hand on that ball. So if I
Right.
were him, I would be going all around the elbow slash like the key area and trying to dominate in those areas because for one, you're going to get a shot off, but two, you're also heavy enough and big enough. You're probably going to get a second look at that. If you remember, I mean, this is maybe aging me, but you remember Francis LeBlanc, how he played? And it
Yeah.
was
Yep.
about shooting and then going to get your rebound after he shot and then followed the ball constantly. I don't know why Ben Simmons couldn't do that because he's big enough and he's strong enough, obviously, to get that back. But yeah, that would be my advice to him. I mean, obviously, you got to stay away from the 3-pointer because he's a legal liability out there. I think in most cases. So yeah, just trying to get like a half decent mid range game would be great for your game because then guys would have to respect you. They jump up, and then you more times than not you'd be able to get an open look at the net.
Right. His free throws are so pathetic. Like,
Awful.
he's so afraid to go to the line. Like, he is so afraid, and I view it like field goal kicking. No excuse to me. You miss one. I can't. I just like seeing Andy Pinero for the Panthers this weekend. You want to strangle him because you see him just miss two kicks that wouldn't win the game. Like, these guys like Simmons and LeBron that are so good players, but they suck at the free throw line. It just perplexes me that they can't master a really simple part of the game.
Yeah, yeah. You think it would be the easiest thing in the world? I mean, I know guys who get up to the free. Joe Blow from the bridge, old Cole McDonald gets up to the free throw line. He's money.
Right.
But you're right. Some of the best players in the world that just can't get it. And now it's like if you see someone with an 80% free throw thing, like oh they're good, but it's like why can't you be up to the nine? You should be in the 86 to 90 range easily.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
just how it goes. get to the grandma, get the grandma shot going. That's all I gotta
If
say.
it works, if it goes in, it goes in. Like Jackie Moon it if you have to. Kyrie Irving, we've alluded to this. Saturday night, he had a 6 minute go with the media. Nick Friedel, who covers the Nets, credit to him. He did not let Kyrie. Kyrie has been reposting different documentaries, different thoughts of Alex Jones, who's a conspiracy theorist regarding to Sandy Hook, which if people don't remember, that was a disastrous school shooting that he's still on trial for, and he owes over $4 billion to families of the survivors of Sandy Hook. Kyrie is skewing off anti-Semitic comments. There were Jewish people at the game last night in the front row wearing anti-systemic behavior. Miles Leonard, if you recall this, Shay, he used to play for the Heat. He got canceled and didn't play again. He hasn't played in the NBA since he made some comments about Jewish people. Kyrie Irving is getting some pushback, but he's going to play, and he played last night. He's going to continue to play. It just makes me sad that he gets to just get away with this, and he even thinks in his own world that he is doing the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. His quote, and I was looking at different articles about him today, and one of them is that he's got an army around him. He feels like I mean, this is such a hero move, but he feels like he's a leader in
Right.
this kind of movement and this thing, kind of like Kanye West too, with anti-Semitic comments. I mean, I don't know where these people get off on, they're not joking, obviously, but comparing certain things to the Holocaust, which was obviously, I mean, it's the most horrific thing maybe
Yeah.
in
Human
all
history.
humankind, if you want to think
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, like you're right in the sense that he's not going to get punished for him. I mean, what the owner said. Oh, I was very disappointed in his comments. Big whoop that
Yeah. Who
you're
cares?
disappointed in his comments. Like, are you going to do anything about it? Like, I mean, like you're going to lose fan bases and you're going to piss a lot of people off. But at the end of the day, for him, he probably feels like he needs to play him because their team is doing so poorly. He's the one, you know, bright spot on the team. And if they
Mm.
take him out of the equation, well, they're left with pretty much nothing.
Right. No, you're right. That he's playing really well despite all of this, and like you said, he's got an army behind him, and he just. The more I hear these Kanye West speak, Kyrie Irving, I think both guys are pretty intelligent, Shay. Like I think Kyrie Irving, I think he's a smart enough guy. Kanye West is a billionaire. He's not an idiot. To become a billionaire, you have to have some sense. Maybe not a whole lot of sense, but some sense. They just I just think they're selfish, so self-absorbed that they have to think differently than us common folk. And being so radical, it's taking an opinion that is racist. And what I don't understand also, Shay, is just two white guys talking here, is why black people would be going against Jewish people when they should be allies. Their
Right.
people, their ancestors went through similar things. The Holocaust, how Jews were treated when they built the pyramids and things of that nature, slavery, black people not being able to vote until the mid 1800s. You'd think they'd be allies and not against one another, and that is just completely crazy to me.
Yeah, unfortunately, it feels kind of like the world we live in, where more and more people are kind of pinpointed against each other with the states and politics. It
Mm-hmm.
seems more often than not here. Sometimes that does draw in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, doesn't make any sense. I don't know why, you have to compare the two and you have to say, oh, this was worse than the other. I mean, obviously, they're both two horrific events in mankind that we'll never be able to erase, but we can learn from as humans. And it just doesn't seem like these two men, being Mr. West and Mr. Irving, don't really, see it that way. And like you said, they hold such a great empowerment through their social media and their platforms. And unfortunately, it's like we talked about earlier, what Bill Russell kind of called Kyrie Irving out for being a dumb idiot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's. I mean, he kind of hit the hammer on the head with his idea of what a pro athlete and someone in the NBA should uphold. And unfortunately, it's just a lot of hate, not a lot of love. That sounds cheesy, but I mean that's kind of
No,
what he's
it's
going
it's
for.
it's true. It's just true. It's unfortunate what's going on there. We'll see what happens with Udoka. That'll be interesting. More fireworks in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I didn't.
Let's get to a
What? I got one more thing on that. The first time that they play, and this is on the assumption that Udoka takes that job,
Mhm.
that's going to be wild. Especially if the first time they play is in Boston, that's going to be insane.
Yeah, they hate each other already. I mean,
Yeah,
Kyrie.
they're already rivals, and now it's going to be blown up even 10 more times because of Udoka.
Do you think they knew about this during the NBA Finals? The Udoka story.
I'm not surprised. It's kind of like the Kyle Beach thing. Like some stuff was going around, but your team's hot. You don't want to bring it out
Right.
because of the implications of what happens to the coaches. In the case of the video coach for the Blackhawks, in this case for Udoka.
Right.
And you know what? I'm not surprised. I would be surprised if in 10 years, kind of like the Blackhawks, it comes out and it's, yeah, oh, we knew about it the whole time, but we put it on the side burner because we had to do what's best for the team at the time. I'm not going to be surprised. Won't surprise
No.
me one bit.
No. Me either. And the Celtics are a good team. Obviously, we talked about that. And Missoula, words. The case is still out on the verdict's still out on him if he's going to be a good coach and things of that nature. But he's
Yeah,
got to
too
be.
early to tell.
Yeah. Let's get to a positive story because there's just a whole lot of negative in the world right now.
Okay, let's do it.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Spider Mitchell. I don't think he could have made a better impression on his new team. He's averaging 33 points a game over his first six. They're
Right.
5-1. They had a great game with your Celtics last Friday night. That was a classic. Goes to overtime, back and forth affair. Cavs are good, Shea, and Donovan Mitchell looks like a guy that's stepping up even more in his new location.
Yeah, well, you were preaching it last year about how there was needing change in Utah, and maybe he personally needed that change in order to adapt as a player and take on a bigger role. You see Darius Garland out with he's only
Mhm.
played one game this year, and now Mitchell is kind of taken over as that starting guard slash kind of running the offense, and it's worked really well. He's been a monster. He's been passing better, which is too.
Mhm.
Even though he was an okay passer in Utah, I thought he's becoming a better in the first few games of this season. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to love about this team. I can preach this again and again. There are few very very talented young bigs in this league, and here's Cleveland with two of them, in Mobley and Allen. Both are
Right.
tremendous athletes. I think they're both going to be great defensive players as they progress through the careers. They're only 24 and 21 right now. They could be unstoppable if they progress on this level. And I think the team overall is feeling it. They're behind those guys. You got Kevin Love and your boy CD Osman, and as a
Vikings.
backup guy, Dean Wade's not been that bad this year. So they've got players, and obviously they've been winning, like you said. Like what are they 5-1 now?
Yeah, 5-1.
Yeah, they just know how to win, and yeah, Mitchell's a big part of that. I'm kind of creeping into that right now. I mean, obviously it's early, but that little MVP candidate still sticks in my head a little bit.
Are the Miami Heat in trouble?
The Heat, I don't. No, I don't think so. I don't think so, but it's also just too early to tell. If the Heat can rally in and kind of dial in these next, I would say, 2 weeks,
Hmm.
then I think they're going to be right back on that track. They don't have to do anything too impressive, but they just kind of stay in the scrum and they don't lose games like they have been recently. Then I think they should be okay. I don't have as much faith as I had in the last couple of years when I thought they were kind of a powerhouse team.
Right. I think so many teams in the East got better, and they didn't. I think
Right?
your
They didn't do
Celtics got
anything.
better with Brogdon. They're already better. They beat them last year. Spider Mitchell. The Raptors were quiet, but I think the Raptors are a good team. I think they're as good as the Heat on pay. Like
Mm.
Siak, I look at Siakam so far this year. Shea, he's another guy that's taken steps. He looks like a different player. He's passing, but like you mentioned, just his passing. He's passing better. He looks so confident shooting the three. He's not. He's going up knowing he's going to make the shot. They crushed Atlanta last night. Atlanta's not that good, but I watched them against the Sixers last week, and he looks like a guy that can be a number one on a really good team.
Yeah, yeah, and, kudos to him. He's not someone I thought of in the last few years who's going to take that extra step, and he's proven me and probably a lot of other people wrong. And maybe he is going to be that superstar type caliber that they look to night in, night out, and then you have quality pieces beside him. Like you're right. Like last night, they didn't have Fred VanVleet, but it's like they almost didn't need him. They were fine with the lineup they had, and they played really well defensively, and they kind of crushed them. And Atlanta should be better than that than they are. I kind of it's just a head scratcher to me why they're so porous. I don't know if you have an answer for that or if it's just maybe they just don't have the team that I think they do.
I think they have a good team. I'm with you there. I watched them last night, and it's as if they don't know who should take the ball up half the time. Like Dejounte Murray just looks kind of awkward in that system so far, where Trae Young's like, okay, give me the ball, and Dejounte's like, well, can I take it up sometimes? And then Trae's like, no, because ever since I was in Oklahoma, I took the ball up, and I took the ball up every snap since I got here. So yeah, go back to San Antonio. I think they need to figure out how to play together in unison because
Yeah.
I think they could average 20 assists a game between the two of them if they really wanted to because they have good shooting and they could pass the ball to one another to hit a splash three every once in a while. It just looks awkward with 2 point guards in the same system playing 30 to 35 minutes a night with one another.
Yeah, they got crushed last night. Defensively, they just haven't found it yet this year, unfortunately, and they have played some tougher teams. I will admit, but that's no excuse. You still got to kind of grind it out and can't get crushed every night.
Kawhi Leonard
Oh,
has played 2 games this season. He's not traveling with the team on the next 2 game road trip. He hasn't played in a year and a half, and he's played 2 games. He's got knee problems. They're monitoring it. What is he? Is he done? Like, what's going on here with Kawhi?
yeah, unfortunately, I'm looking like a meat stick over here because of my pick last week and saying who's going to win the West. The Clippers are god awful. Paul George is not playing super hot right now, nor is a lot of the team. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's Kawhi Leonard. Maybe we've seen Kawhi Leonard's best days. I heard some interesting takes about him kind of waiting it out, not playing a lot, so that when the next time he gets, I think his contract's up in 2024, and he's just going to get paid then, which it's a stretch. Like, what are you not going to play? Like, you're just going to play some games, 30, 40 games, and
Right.
like, no, like, I don't know. I don't know what his deal is, but that's another guy who I think is a great player. He doesn't say anything in the media, which is great, kind of, and not great, but obviously the fact he's not spewing garbage like Kyrie Irving is. But he's another guy who maybe thinks he's a little bit above his teammates, and it's kind of I'm running on Kawhi time. I'm not running on Ballmer's time, the owner of the Clippers, and that's kind of how it feels a lot of the time with this guy. So I don't know. If they need to win, they sometimes are going to need this guy to play because whether he's 70%, 80%, he's still better than the team, and he's still better than most of the guys he plays against because of his two-way ability.
I mean, yeah, they've lost to OKC twice this season already. The Clippers.
Not must wins, but like wins that should be secured pretty easily. Right?
Yes, they beat the Rockets by 2 last night. Who stink? They're 1-7. The Rockets to start the season. 2 games, and he's averaged 22 minutes a game in those 2 games he's played. I find it perplexing. I thought he'd play this year. He's get missed back-to-backs, of course. That's a Kawhi Leonard special. Load management was named after Kawhi Leonard. But it would be frustrating if I'm Tyronn Lue and I'm like, I'm not going to have him the whole year. Steve Ballmer paying him a bunch of money not to play. Not so cool now, Steve, but pretty damn cool, I guess. Is that maybe that's how Ballmer has to take it because he likes to be fired up and he likes to bloviate. But
do they? I mean, not that we won't talk about playoffs because that's so far out of the picture. But Do they start to feel a rhythm here? Do you think this team kind of has it? I mean, they were a playoff team last year, and
Mm,
they kind of got things together. They're a playoff team without Kawhi, obviously, but with
right.
him in the lineup and with insertion, do you think that they get better? Do you think they go on a little bit of run, like some winning streaks, or is this kind of the most we're going to see to the Clippers, like a bare minimum team?
I still like the team. I think Paul George plays like an all-star when he needs to. Like you said, he hasn't had a great start, but you still have Senior on that team, your boy.
Yeah,
And John Wall's look good. I will say that John Wall's look
that's a
good playing,
positive. Yeah,
so that's a positive for them. He's a big X factor. Terrence Mann, I still like a lot. I think he's still scratching at the surface. I think he's got a lot of positive. Big Zubac is a good. Like I like their team. I will say the West is good. Golden State's 3-4, and they're a damn good team. My Kings 2-4, 2 wins in a row. I'll tell you that for free. Looking
yeah.
good, Sacramento last night. But when you know, I just think there's a lot of good teams in the West at the top. You got the Clippers, obviously, like you said, the Warriors. The Nuggets are a good team despite losing to the Lakers the other night. So I think the Clippers can be a playoff team again, even without Kawhi potentially playing the whole year.
Okay, okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Quickly, Lakers, they win their first game. Russ has looked good off the bench. Finally, I only pitched this idea a year ago, and they're finally doing it. So, congrats. What do you make of of their win? And do you think this can be a formula that wins them some games?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm with you on that one. Russ is just not good enough to be a starter anymore, but he can be an effective guy who brings energy, and he can still do many great things. I mean, as bad as he is, sometimes people love to forget the fact that he can be an effective player,
Hmm.
doing other things. I mean, his shot is just not there where it used to be, but he still has that energy. He can still kind of drive at times, and he's a decent rebounder for a guard who's not very tall. But now with AD, kind of his health issues seem to be just underwhelming. And as a guy who kind of watched this guy progress in New Orleans and then came over and was a star, and when he first got to LA, it's just so sad to see a guy kind of just he's not moping around the NBA, but he's just kind of getting by at this point. Unfortunately, just due to his knees, I think it is. Is that what it is? His knees?
Yeah, it's been his knees, and it's also so many bigs that are better than him. Like people thought, oh, AD is gonna be the next big. Well, Giannis is better than AD by a country
Right.
mile.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid is better than Anthony Davis. So two guys that have surpassed him, but by a mile, and you're just looking at it saying, "Wow, this what could have been."
Yeah, yeah, that's even sadder. It's like, okay, well now, yeah, now he's kind of in the rearview mirror when it comes to elite big men. But yeah, no, I mean, it's like you said, the Lakers weren't going 1-81. Like they're gonna figure it out. I
Hmm.
think sooner rather than later, and maybe this is the right mix. Maybe Russ off the bench, and they still have new pieces that are trying to figure it out as well. I don't think they're as bad as people make them seem, but obviously people love to dog the Lakers, which I don't fully disagree with. I think it's kind of fun just because it's LeBron's team and they won
Right.
their little Mickey Mouse ring, and it is what it is. There's just some characters there. It's like a
There,
reality TV show.
there certainly is. Yeah, there's always something in Los Angeles. Speaking of drama, we got to
Mm,
pivot. Let's go to the National Hockey League
okay.
and Arizona. No, sorry, not Arizona. Miss wrong page. Let's go to your Toronto Maple Leafs, who have been just a buzz the last 48 hours with article after article I see online, or my dad has sent to me, about the conspiracy theories about firing Sheldon Keefe and the way the team's playing. And what have you made about what? Oh, do you think Sheldon Keefe should have been fired over the last couple hours? Give us your general thoughts on what you wanted to happen after the loss to Anaheim Sunday night until right now.
Yeah, I think I was probably off my rockers when they lost to Anaheim. I was pretty upset, but I give some time to think about it, and you know Okay, I'm just gonna have to go into my full layer breakdown of what I
Yes.
think's going on
Take
with the
us take
Leafs.
us in deep.
I'm
Take
gonna
us
take a
in.
stab. I don't think I'm gonna be right, but I love to take a stab at things. So what happened before Mike Babcock got fired? The Leafs playing pretty terrible, and it almost looked like they just had no confidence in their coach. Which, maybe that's it right now. Matthews, Marner, they're playing like dog shit. They know they're playing like dog shit, and they're not doing anything about it. What it seems like, Tavares and Nylander, they're playing a better than dog shit, but they're not playing great, and they're not motivators either. None of them are not well, no four of those guys are going to snap at the team and say, "You guys better pick it up down there." Speaking to the how god awful this bottom six has been, um, but you got to look at things that Keefe has done and say, is that you can't just fire them just because they're losing. That's just to me. I mean, sometimes it does happen, aka the Nets, but sometimes you got to say, okay, what did the guy actually do? Well, not benching Mitch Marner for more than a shift. That shows you have no testicles. This is a guy who was a scrapper, by the way, in his heyday and whatever
Mhm.
AHL, ECHL. You would think you'd have something down there, but he did not do that. Then he does poke the bear a little bit, and he goes after Dubas, saying, I got no help in my decor. My decor's crap. Well, maybe just not give Justin Hall as many minutes as you have been giving him, because he's been he looks like he might play for the he looks like he plays for the Hawks of the Elsa Bukdok Hawks, and he might be
Right.
like a third pairing guy on that D line, let alone the national, and playing as a second pairing. Maybe you cut his minutes a little bit. I don't know. Maybe. On
Right.
top of all that, Dubas is just not. He's not giving him anything, and I think there's a reason why. It's because they're saying we're going to get Barry Trotz in here and we're going to get a little replacement going on. Sorry, Keith, but there's a reason I'm not helping you. It's because I want to make you look really bad. I'm going to get the media on you, and then we're going to get you like a pig, get you out of here. Have a good day. Barry, come fix this mess. Whether Barry or not can do that will be I think another podcast. But overall, I'm not worried. Some people would have come on here and said Shamus must be losing his shit. He must be panicked at this point. Now I'm not worried, because I've learned over years and years of getting out of the first round, you just have to have patience, and then you will get out of the first round in June. So yeah, that's my hot spell on that. I'm not worried. I'm not worried mainly because I know that the best players aren't even playing like the best players, and when they pick it up, great. That's when we maybe start to see some success. And Jerry, last but not least, Jerry Shelgren should be in the ECHL. He is god awful. Unfortunately, his team doesn't help him, which has probably made it look a lot
Yeah.
worse. But yeah, he's not been well. Send the
Okay.
flowers.
Okay. Let's see. Let's dissect this. Let me see where I want to start with it.
Okay.
So, would you say it's fair? Is it fair to say that is it fair to say that Sheldon Keefe's comments about the team not having a whole lot of depth, starting with the defenseman, is fair?
I think that's a valid comment. I mean, I think it's a cry for help that his GM is not going to answer.
Okay. If Justin Hall's not playing 21 minutes a night, who on the
Yep.
Toronto Maple Leafs defense pair should be?
Anybody. Anybody.
Crawl.
I think Giordano. I don't know why Giordano can't play more minutes.
He's an old man.
I know he's old, but like he's also he's not jittery out there. I'm watching Hall chop it up in the neutral zone, looking like he's scared shitless, because he knows that his job's on the line, and he knows every single person in that locker room is questioning his ability to be an NHL defenseman. Giordano knows he's an NHL defenseman and took less money to be here. He's the one who needs to snap it and say, "Listen, you guys are playing like dog shit, and you guys need to figure it out."
Are the Toronto Maple Leafs run by the players like the Brooklyn Nets are?
Ooh, that's a spicy question.
Mm.
Um, yeah, in the sense a little bit, because I don't think like at the end of the day, I think when it comes down to who's picking who, I think the Leafs, being the players, have more say than Keefe, especially those top 4 or 5 guys. Like I think they kind of run the show, and I think that unfortunately Keefe just has to work around them, which sometimes he does a really good job, and other times he doesn't do a good job.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's same with the GM. Like, I mean, they said here's what we're gonna get for money, and they didn't really negotiate, and they got what they wanted.
Right. Because the reason I asked that is if Mike Babcock's the coach,
That's not fun.
Mitch Marner doesn't play the whole rest of the third
Yeah,
period, and he shouldn't have, quite frankly. Two
no, I would
goals
agree.
were directly his fault.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it stings because it's the worst team in the league in Anaheim,
Yeah.
who don't even have Jamie Drysdale, who's a competent young defenseman. If you take him out of the lineup, well, they got a couple guys, but at the same time, you're right. I mean, it's like what are you doing out there? And I keep hearing this that people think Mitch Marner's an unlikable player to watch. Do you find that true?
No, no. I think people say that because they're still upset about the contract.
Okay, that's fair.
My father would be one of those people that would have that opinion because
Yeah,
he.
you take salary out of that, you realize he can be a very elite style player,
Mhm.
but he's not playing elite right now. He looks like shit,
Any
which
given day, he's a top 25 player in the league. Mitch
yeah,
Marner.
yeah.
I don't think he's unlikable. I think he's as likable as anybody. I think he's as like. I mean, Bill Nylander was a punching bag forever in Toronto. I still think Mitch Marner's well. I think he's well liked more than Bill Nylander still to this day.
Maybe your Ontario tax you were talking about last week. Maybe that plays a factor in old Mitch Mitchell.
You get a guy that some people say looks like me, and I have a face that nobody really likes. So, I mean, that's another thing. Just
Who's
hate
this comparison? You
Bill
and you and
Nylander
Willie?
himself.
You and Willie?
I've had about at least 10 people tell me that I look like Bill Nylander.
Really?
Yes.
This is the first I've heard of this. This is
At
this is
least, I'm
interesting.
telling you, 10 to 15 people say I look like Bill Nylander.
If you grew the scruff out a little bit and maybe dyed the hair a little blonder or lightened it up a little bit,
Yeah.
throw that 88 on, I maybe could see it. I never
Yeah.
thought about that until now. That's interesting though.
If I ever dress up for Halloween, I'll go as Bill. I'll
Yeah,
dye the
yeah.
hair, get the scruff going. So here's my prediction yesterday for what the Leafs are going to do. I never thought they're going to fire Keefe. My big prediction, they got to do something because they know the fan base is pissed and they're reactionary, and you got to appease some people.
Right.
My prediction is Justin Hall is going to be a healthy scratch tomorrow night, and that'll make people happy because Justin Hall is out of the lineup. They hate him right now,
Yeah.
and doing that may be enough for people to get the flies off, so to speak, just to forget about it. You play Philly, who's off to a good start, but isn't a good team. They're on a back-to-back as well. They're playing the Rangers tonight, so you're likely going to get a backup goaltender. That screams a Leafs win, and it gets people happy that they don't get to see Justin Hall on the screen tomorrow night.
So my theory about them, like Dubas and the players being against Keefe, you think that's not true. You just think that it is a bad timing for everybody, and Keith's hands are tied, or sorry, Dubas's hands are tied with what he's got to work with, and
To me, the person I blame the most is Cal Dubas because he signed all those players, and when in life you don't double down on mistakes. In life, you do not just you don't just look at something and say, "Well, I'm going to bring the same thing back because it didn't win last year." It's not like we got to a conference final, we got to the first round. We're going to keep a soft roster with a bad defense core. And I think it's a good idea to have a weak defense core where if Jake Muzzin gets injured, who's always injured, if he gets injured, we're fucked. And that's where the Maple Leafs are right now. Not to mention the only saving grace that I read online or anywhere that Leafs propagandists put out is we got to trade for Jacob Chikrin, who's hurt as much as Jake Muzzin. So good luck with that.
yeah, really,
I just think the roster construction of this team has been poor, and any kind of an injury, any kind of a hiccup, and you are in a very bad situation that's going to be really tough to compete.
Yeah. Bad when Keefe is the one saying we have no, like, our decor is not being able to move pucks, and like that's exactly what the decor is constructed to do, is moving the puck around
Right.
and snapping it around a little bit. And if they can't do that, then they've got no hope.
So after 9 games, obviously you've lost to some bad teams.
Yeah.
Anaheim, San Jose, Arizona, Montreal. Confidence meter in the Leafs right now, 0 to 100.
Oof. And is this confidence to make the playoffs? Confidence to get out
Just
of a
confidence
round? Just
any given night to win a game.
I'm gonna if I'm going with my theory, then I'm gonna say a confidence level of 40, because
Okay,
the team's too talented to just lose
right.
every single night and lay down and take it. But at the same time, I think there's something fishy going on, I think, with the Leafs, and we haven't exactly got to the bottom of it. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's just a major funk, and they're just going to break out of it and figure it out. But a lot of that, I think, has to play with how their bottom six does as well, because obviously they've contributed less to nothing than on that California trip. I know Angball has a goal, but he also had one of the worst turnovers I've ever seen
Mhm.
coming out of his zone, which was by far the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and something for me that I find interesting is I don't know if you remember this last year, but McDavid went through like a slump. It was 5 games. I think he didn't have a point in those 5 games, and he had a bad plus minus for people that care about that stat. And it was just negative. I think Edmonton lost all 5 games, and McDavid was taking heat. I don't hear much heat about Austin Matthews in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
He's been bad through 9 games. He's not played good in any really. I look at him night in, night out. His attitude looks shitty. I don't see his compete level that great. His back check is about as much as Johnny Gaudreau's on that goal against Boston last weekend. To me, he's been a big. If you're going to turn it around, it's Matthews that's going to do it, and he's got to just step up and have a game. And I don't think he has yet.
Yeah, it's like where is the Art Ross Trophy winner that just came across? Where's the Rocket Richard winner that we just saw? And it's kind of like I still feel, and I'll double down on this from last week. I feel like something's lingering with him. I don't feel like he's 100%, because I have
Right.
no idea why he wouldn't play better if he was. And obviously, he relies on Marner a little bit, but Marner's point wise, he's been fine. It's just his defensive play has just been porous, unfortunately, for the beginning of the year. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, no answer for why Matthews is playing wrong, and that's the only thing I can think of right now.
The Eastern Conference is so close. Like the Leafs are 2 points out of first. It's incredibly bunched up. You got 2 points out of second. So Boston's just they're kicking ass and taking names so far this season. But biggest surprise team from the Eastern Conference so far this year.
Well, I would have said your Sabres, but these New Jersey Devils are playing pretty good.
Yeah,
Like, I don't something about your teams lately have just kind of started popping off. And I don't think the Devils will continue this level of success. I think they will drop off eventually. But yeah, Jesper Bratt's looking like a man who really wants to get paid. That's what I'm going to say. Because for people who don't know, this guy was a RFA last year. Could have signed a long, 7-8 year term deal, and instead signed a shorter deal, and now is probably looking at getting paid. I'm saying close to $8 to $9 million if
yeah.
he can keep this, if he can sustain this level of play, which I don't think he will. But yeah, I mean, everyone in that lineup, Mercer's played well, Heischer's been not bad, Hughes has been good, Dougie
Mhm.
Hamilton's been able to provide off that back end. So yeah, they're my biggest surprise, because I kind of thought, okay, it's another year where New Jersey will stink it up, and they'll get a top 3 pick probably. But unfortunately for them, they've played better. Who's your team? Are you the same?
New Jersey's right there. I mean, Jesper Bratt, I believe, will be a point per game player this year. He had 75 and 78 last year, so I think he gets
Yeah.
to a point per game.
Me
He's a
too.
good player, and if you're in fantasy leagues, he's a sneaky little ad because I guarantee you most leagues did not take Jesper Bratt. But just free little advice for you. I joked about watching the Sabres. The Sabres aren't that bad. Like I've watched every game that they played so far. I rewatched a game I didn't get to see over the weekend on Sunday, and they got a lot of talent. Skinner, Tage Thompson, Dahlin's got 6 goals already. Olafson's a good player. Buffalo's and Eric Comrie's been really solid in between the pipes. I think Buffalo will compete. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I think the Leafs are still better than them. I think Boston's still better than them in the Atlantic, the Tampa teams. But I think Buffalo will be in it in March, April because they just have a high compete level and they know their system, they know their structure. So it surprised me how well they played out of the gate. And it's not like they played crap teams. They beat Edmonton, they beaten Calgary out there. They've beaten Pittsburgh. So I respect what Buffalo's done early in the year, including Tage Thompson with 6 points last night.
Yeah, Don Granato's got this team buzzing right
Mm-hmm.
now. It's fun to watch. I watched them. Who don't tell me they played. They played. West was it? Who did they play last night? God, I'm
Last
losing.
night they
I
played
watched.
Detroit.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, I watched. I'd say a half a period of that when I was utterly disappointed that there was a rain delay. Nothing's worse than you're looking forward to a game all day. You're like, oh, I just set up some time for this. You're doing the little things, getting your chores done. Just go turn on the game, rain delay. I was like, oh my god, this is. We'll watch it tonight, and we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
I agree. They've been buzzing. So yeah, out of that portion, I got to watch Buffalo, which I kind of felt like you for a quick second there with those two teams that are
Right.
not great. But you're right. There was some good hockey. And Tage Thompson, man, this guy is going to be. I thought it was. I'm on the train that I thought it was kind of a one and done season. I thought he had one really big year, and I didn't know he'd be able to sustain that. But it's like a guy. He's playing like a guy possessed, and he's figured things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that
he's
was.
got a great shot. He's got a knack for just
He's
getting.
got an IQ, right? Like he's got
Yeah.
like that pass he made to Jeff Skinner, seemingly turning around and throwing it to him in front of the net. That was that's a high level pass that not a lot of guys I think can do all the time.
He's got size. He's got skill. He's got speed. He's got a lot of great tangibles about him. I like him a lot. I wanted to alert you of this because you alerted me of this earlier in the year. Are you
Okay,
aware that there's a European series this weekend?
a European series.
Yes, so there's 2 games in Finland this weekend. Were you
Oh,
aware?
I didn't know. Who are the games?
Colorado and Columbus. 2 games, Friday and Saturday in Finland.
Two. They play twice. Oh,
Yeah,
it's interesting. I guess you can see it with Mikko Rantanen, and then you got Kekalainen. He'd have a lot to do with that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's not something I'll be tuning into, but good
right.
good for them, I guess. Good for Finland. I mean, obviously, you get to see some world class players play there. I hope Patrick Laine is healthy. I mean, that'd be great to see him back
Yeah,
playing there.
yeah. I just saw that this week because I was looking up. I like to look up the schedule and looking ahead just to see what games I'm gonna watch certain nights and plan that out. And I see Colorado, Columbus, 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, and I'm like, what the hell? What's going on here? So I looked
Yeah,
up. It's a European series in Finland, so that's a couple games with dreadful Columbus already. But hopefully they enjoy it over in Finland. West Vegas. Vegas looks. Uh, you look at the coaching changes: Montgomery in Boston, Butch Cassidy in Vegas. Both teams have looked great, and yeah, Vegas has come out of the gate firing on all cylinders.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, to me, they're the best team in the West right now, and they're not doing anything too special. They do have it chipping in from all different sides. I mean, you see it. Jack Eichel obviously leads that trade. Great overtime winning goal against Winnipeg the other night. But when they're just beating teams that they should win against, all the teams that you see that they've got dubs of win, you're like, okay, well they're better than them. They're better than them. Then the two losses are just against Calgary and Colorado, who, maybe on paper are better teams than Vegas, but
Right.
that's so that makes it justifiable when you lose. And they didn't lose. Like, I think both games were 1-goal games. They weren't a blowouts by any manner. So really playing some high quality play, but also getting really high quality goaltending from both Thompson and Aiden Hill. No one likes to say about how good Aiden Hill's been. He's been a quality backup for much of this season. So, yeah, I've got to catch one of their games. They played an earlier game this Friday that just passed for, I think Nevada had the day off or something like that. So
Right.
I was able to tune into that game. They're playing the Ducks. So it was interesting to watch a full game play of them because it was really entertaining.
Connor McDavid, pretty good start.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. He's a bunch of people said this at the beginning of the year, and I thought probably not true, depending on the who's going to pop off. But a lot of people saying that a rocket is pretty attainable, and I think there's any year this seems like the year with the start and how good the team's been. You can trust. Well, I want to say you can trust your goaltending, but Campbell's not been so great to be a guy who'd be able to trust, but. Yeah, I mean, taking the risks, I think McDavid's going to get it done. I think that this is the year. I think he gets 50, 60 goals.
Yeah, I think so too. He looks good. Old Jeff Skinner's brother, Stuart Skinner, looking good in between the pipes as well for the Oilers.
Yeah, he's the answer.
Your boy Jack Campbell's in another goaltending controversy early on in the season. So more
Yeah.
more pressure on him. You mentioned baseball last night. That did not happen because of a rain delay. Now Philly gets to go with Ranger Suarez today because of an extra day of rest. He's going to pitch Game 3 against Lance McCullers Jr. First two games were blowouts early. Phillies rallied in one game. They couldn't in the next because Framber Valdez is just simply one of the best postseason pitchers over the last decade.
Yeah.
What do you make of this series now heading into 3 straight in Philadelphia?
I think this is where Philly wanted to be. I think they wanted to grab one in Houston, and then they knew that they had an opportunity here to come and play home ball and be effective. The only thing is, is it going to matter? Because Houston's Houston. They have just dominated every series they had leading up to this, and the waking beast is not arrived in 5'4" Altuve, who has been is done next to nothing prior to this series. So I think they if they can keep him cold, great. I think Suarez is a better option than Syndergaard by Dunn. And, I don't think Suarez is had a fantastic postseason, but he hasn't also blown it up like some of the other pitchers on this team have. So I think it should be good. I am anticipating I honestly with the pitchers, I'm kind of anticipating a blowout going either way. I'm not sure who yet. McCullers Jr. is I know you're pretty highly on this guy. He's shown a lot of really, really good stuff in the past. Of course, he didn't play much this year due to injuries, but yeah, I think if he can tile it in, I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for Houston. It's my prediction.
Yeah, I'm expecting a Houston win tonight. They haven't lost a road game yet in the postseason. As you mentioned, I love McCullers. Good-looking guy. He's got good hair. So
good lettuce.
Good hair. Yeah, it's just hard not to root for a good-looking guy with good hair. That's my thought on him. But yeah, I like Houston tonight in that they have Nola going tomorrow because of the extra day of rest, and then they're going to go Syndergaard in Game 5. So there's a lot of pressure on, I think, Nola tomorrow to win that game. That's the real pressure. He got blown up in Game 1. I think Philly don't go down 3-1 to this team. Do not do it because you got just a team full of giants that want to win. And I predicted Houston would win this series, and I predicted Altuve would win the MVP. So I think Altuve will wake up for this. He had 3 hits in Game 2, so he's starting to turn it around a little bit. Oddly enough, Thursday night it'll be Game 5, Astros-Phillies, so Philly versus Houston. Also, NFL Thursday Night Football, it is Eagles versus Texans, Philly versus Houston. So a little funny how the world works on that front. That
Yeah.
two Philly versus Houston matchups Thursday night.
What? Whose jersey or hat do you think Jalen Hurts wins or goes with that night? You heard the controversy about him going with Houston originally because he's from Texas. He's
Right.
Texas boy, and yeah, and anyways, he's not catching much heat, I don't think, because of the way the Eagles have played. But you know,
That game's
the,
in Houston, the Eagles
yeah,
game. So maybe he wears an Astros jersey to the game.
I think so too. I think he double downs and goes with Astros because, I mean, yeah, because for one, he's probably not too worried about the Texans and losing to
No, no,
them.
no.
But on top of that, he's like, well, if I can look good for my home state, that's also going to reflect well on me, probably.
Yeah, they're 15.5 point favorites. So
Oh
they,
Jesus!
yeah, they are big favorites in that game Thursday night. So I don't think he's too worried about the Texans pass rush or what they're going to bring to the table, because quite
Yeah.
frankly, they're the worst team in the National Football League. Today's the NFL trade deadline day. Did you see any of the moves that were made today?
Unfortunately, I went on. I only went on once, and there was nothing. The latest thing was the Rourke Smith trade, which I think was a good one by about Baltimore, obviously for what the return was. But
Right.
what are some of the highlights, and what are some of the bigger ones that you think will impact their teams?
So one that surprised me that I thought this player could be moved. It came out of left field. The Denver Broncos traded their star pass rusher Bradley Chubb to the Miami Dolphins for a package involving a first round pick. So Bradley Chubb is now a Dolphin. He will line up on that defensive line. Their defense has been the weak point
Wow.
of their team so far. He's got 5.5 sacks. He's been to Pro Bowls. An aggressive move by the Dolphins. I think they view themselves as a wild card team. They're not as good as the Bills, but they got the best wide receiver in football in Tyreek Hill. I think they have the best 1-2 combination with Hill and with Jalen Waddle. They're first and fourth respectively in receiving yards. So the Dolphins, not being Dolphins, not just sticking to their guns, they're going all in, so to speak, and getting Bradley Chubb. It's an aggressive move, but I like it from the Dolphins.
Me too. I mean, they're obviously kind of a mediocre defensive team, like you just said. But like
Yeah.
you said last or yesterday, you said about their wide receiver core. They might never come across something like this ever again in their
Mhm.
franchise. I firmly believe that, and with Tua, if Tua is healthy, I think they just kind of have to believe that they can be a solid wild card team, slip in, and hopefully make some magic happen.
Also, Chase Claypool, the Steelers wide receiver.
Traded?
Yes, he was traded today. If you had to think of teams that could use a wide receiver, what teams come to mind?
I think of the Chargers probably.
Right?
I
That's a
think I think of Baltimore, who could use another receiver.
mhm.
Um, no, not them. I guess. Um,
Green Bay.
there's probably a few more, but I mean, they're not coming off the top of my head.
Chase Claypool was traded to the Chicago Bears.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's very surprising. But I mean,
Yes. Yes.
what's going back, like a second round pick?
Second round pick. Yeah. To
Yeah,
to the
that's what
Steelers.
he's.
Perplexing to me because the Bears traded their two best defensive players in Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn to the Eagles and to the Ravens, respectively. Now they get a wide receiver to help Justin Fields. They didn't want to do that from the start of the season, but they'll do it now. Where
It
what are
doesn't
they
matter.
what are they playing for now? But Claypool goes to the Bears. I don't get it, but what I find even more interesting, to this point, stuff may come in, but the Green Bay Packers have still not traded for a wide receiver, and the Chicago Bears have. That's the headline. That's the headline.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they plan on flipping him. It's like, hey, I know you don't like us, but we'll flip you guys a receiver. We got a great guy here. He dances perfectly for you
Right,
guys.
right. Yeah, he
Yeah,
would he would mesh well with Aaron Rodgers. These two.
yeah. Aaron Rodgers, who's snapping at everybody, wants to just rip somebody's head off right now. Yeah, you would love a guy like Claypool, fun and energetic, TikToker.
There was also another NFC North trade, an in division trade, which you rarely see. The Detroit Lions, the 1-6 Lions, traded Pro Bowl tight end T.J. Hawkinson to the Minnesota Vikings
Love
for
that.
a conditional second round pick.
I love that move
Yeah,
for the
me,
Vikings.
me too.
That says we're a contender. What was it? A conditional first?
A conditional second.
Oh, conditional second. Okay,
Yeah,
well that seems pretty good. I mean, he's quality. I'm not going to lie to anybody and say I tune into a lot of Detroit games because, quite frankly, I don't. They're the doormat of the NFL. But I know
yeah.
he's a half decent tight end, so and that's kind of position that they need. So yeah, good for them. That's another guy Kirk Cousins can throw to and dress awful for every single game he goes to because his wife dresses him.
You'll never get over that in your eyes.
No,
But
I'll never get over that.
now Hawkinson is great. He's one of the best tight ends in football, and also Minnesota lost their starting tight end for 8 to 10 weeks with an injury. So go get another great tight end. If you Detroit trading him again makes no sense, but it's Detroit. So
What are you gonna do?
while you're rebuilding, you can't have good players, you can't have talent on your team, I guess. But anyway, Detroit, and then also a surprising trade. Calvin Ridley, who we recall was suspended for gambling, he's done for the year. He was flipped from Atlanta to Jacksonville. So this is presumably for next season.
Yeah, I
But
guess
now Calvin Ridley is in Jacksonville. He will not be playing the rest of the year, but Calvin Ridley is now a Jag.
he's a receiver.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. I can see it in the long run
Hmm.
because obviously that core is going to need help. I think they helped out Lawrence a little bit this year, but I think he still needs help in the future. So if it was a cheap deal, obviously, but you also know you're kind of playing with this kind of a scumbag too. So that's you got to take
Right.
that in mind. It says a lot about their organization now.
Yeah, yeah, certainly does. Did you get any pride watching the Browns winning last night?
I did not. No, I'm not a Browns fan.
Right.
I am a fan of players though, and there were players I was very happy for. I love Taki Taki, one of my favorite players in the
He's
league.
fun. Good player.
Love Miles Garrett. I love that decor. There's just so many good defensive players there that they make it interesting and they keep it lively. And they really gave Burrow a really hard time last night, which I enjoyed. We're not going to talk about Amari Cooper's interception because that was just probably the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. I almost saw Amari Cooper wink at the receiver, so maybe he's like a sleeper agent trying to help out the Cincinnati
Right.
Bengals, getting some cash on their side. Who knows? But yeah, no, it was an entertaining game, and I know Burrow didn't play great, but at the same time, I'll back up what I said about the Browns defense being pretty elite. And you have Nick Chubb, who never hurts.
Yeah, it was interesting for sure. I wish I would have taken the Browns plus 3.5, but I didn't. But looking ahead, I like a lot
Oh
of the
man,
lines for this weekend that I'll be betting underdogs. So I'll wait for that. Watch anything show wise, movie wise this weekend? Watch lately since we last spoke. Have you watched anything good on
yeah.
television?
So I've been on a big horror kick, obviously being that time of the year for Halloween. That movie
Right.
I would talk about last week, Barbarian. I did get to see it. It just came out on Disney Plus. I recommend anyone to go watch it. It's got Justin Long. It's very intense, but it's also got some very good humor to it, which I enjoy.
Right.
The acting was good and the plot was pretty good. I rewatched The Conjuring. I didn't realize that's coming up on 10 years. I don't know if do you remember that
10
one?
years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
remember.
almost 10
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Saw it
So
in
that
theaters.
yeah. So yeah, watched that one on Saturday night and then yeah, not too much after that. Just been taking in a a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I throw in a little, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, kind of get my
Nice. Good
humor out
show.
there, but a little bit of everything. Still watching The Wire, which has been great. I got a
Right.
funny little what's better what's the better troll job here. So
Okay.
what's the better troll job? DK with the troll job in the red zone where he pretends like the ball's coming to him. Defender gets all worried, starts posting him up. It's nowhere near him. Or the Patrick Patterson celebration where he puts on the gaming set and pretends to game against Arizona.
I like the Patrick Peters one
That's a funny.
myself
That was
because
a funny one.
Kyler Kyler probably was jealous that he was probably upset that he had to play football and couldn't play the new Call of Duty, whatever it's called, that
Yeah.
came out last week.
Oh man,
Knowing him,
yeah. It came out on Friday. You know that he spent all Friday night, probably into Saturday morning, with a headset on, and like you ever see those memes of the guy and he's got like the dent in his head? It's kind of like a little
yeah,
dent coming in. Yeah, you know that's Kyler Murray for the next probably 2-3 weeks.
right, yeah. Actually, I saw the preview for it. The visuals look better than the old
Oh,
games.
it looks
I
like a
haven't
fantastic
really.
game, man.
I've only seen you play it. I've never played it for a second. I'll never play it ever because it's crap. But anyway, it looks better. I hated the old visual of the screen and how it went. But anyway, looks like a cool game. So good for Call of Duty for finally putting out a decent, half decent product.
Yeah.
Took them a decade, but hey, it takes people time. What's on the docket the rest of the week for you? Hitting the links. The weather's been beautiful.
Unfortunately, my club just closed last weekend, so very sad day. This weekend, I had to wash them up and put them away. That's always a tearjerker. You're going through the
Right.
clubs, you get those last swings, you're like, oh, wish I had a better season with you. Oh, I remember those two shots I had good with you. So it's a sad day, but at the same time, just kind of reminisce
Right.
and yeah. I honestly, this weekend I'm putting in a door, which is fun, which I've never done before. So little new experiences when you have a house and you got to do things to it.
Right.
And World Series, I'm
Nice.
not going to put that in the back burner anymore.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds fun, I guess. Good luck with
What? Why the World Series
it.
doesn't sound fun?
No, I'm sure it'll be fun. It's good background noise. Baseball. It's good having a second screen. Baseball, I find anyway.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I love
uh,
it.
but no, and good luck with the door. Good to talk to you
Appreciate
as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
appreciate that, nature boy. Hopefully, maybe we'll get on a hike sometime together and get lost in the woods.
Let's do it. I'm one with nature.
All right, see you, my friend.
See you, buddy. There's Shamus Fillmore. Always a pleasure to see him. Yeah, lot to get into with Shay today, and I thought we dissected that well. So hopefully you guys enjoy our conversation. I see Kyle Hess is in the comments. Think the Packers going to trade for somebody? Well, Kyle, probably not, based on the Packers' history. The Packers never trade for people. They don't get wide receivers. I can't give you a good reason as to why. I think they need one desperately. They cannot stand pat with their schedule. They got the Eagles, they got the Vikings again, they have the Dolphins on Christmas. They got a tough schedule. They got a tough schedule. They got the Rams, who aren't tough but are on their schedule. Chase Claypool, quite frankly, should be a Green Bay Packer, but he's a Chicago Bear. I don't know why he's a Chicago Bear, but he is. I would be making calls to Carolina on DJ Moore, who had a brutal weekend making a selfish play. But again, he might fit in perfect with Aaron Rodgers. That's something I'd look into. But they need a wide receiver. DJ Moore is still there. I call the Bears on Chase Claypool. I call the Steelers. Their young quarterback. So there are teams that I think would sell off wide receivers. Miami, I think even Sherfield, or if Green Bay called up Houston, Brandon Cooks would be a great ad for the Green Bay Packers. So absolutely, the Green Bay Packers should add somebody. But again, we still have some time before the give an opinion, give a prediction right now. I'm going to say they don't because their history tells us they're not going to. They should, but they likely won't. That's my feel on this situation. Just in per Adam Schefter, the 49ers are trading running back Jeff Wilson Jr. to Miami per source. So Jeff Wilson has been the starting running back for for the San Francisco 49ers, but Elijah Mitchell is due to return soon. They acquired Christian McCaffrey in a trade. The 49ers are on a bye week, so Jeff Wilson Jr. will be a Miami Dolphin. Miami, this is the full Bradley Chubb trade. Miami trades 2023 first, which is a San Francisco pick. They don't have their first round pick. A 2024 fourth and running back Chase Edmonds to Denver for Bradley Chubb and a 2025 fifth. Again, I like that move a lot for the Miami Dolphins. Go all in, try to win. This is one of the few times in the history of the Miami Dolphins since Dan Marino, they got a good team, they're competitive, try to win. Try to win. Simple as that. As I'm scrolling through Twitter, looking at other things, I mentioned Calvin Ridley. That's all that's been talked about thus far. Nothing else. No Packers news. Nothing yet as to what's going on. But we'll see here. We'll see with the Packers and what happens with the rest of the NFL. We might have more news as we go on. We've gotten into a lot today, but before we wrap up the show, I wanted to get into LeBron James quickly, and if you can just bear with me. Over the weekend, LeBron James came out and said that he's no longer a Dallas Cowboy fan because of Jerry Jones' stance on kneeling back in 2017 now, when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, and Jerry Jones would not let his team take a knee because he did not believe in free speech, and that's just was his stance on the situation. I'm fine with that from LeBron James. I'm pro Kaepernick. I'm pro kneeling because it was never about the military. People tried to force it into making it against the military. That was never the truth. But nevertheless, that's the way people took it. So I'm fine with that first point from LeBron James. But then it changed, where LeBron said he's not rooting for the Cowboys anymore. He is now a fan of the Cleveland Browns. Okay, LeBron, you are not rooting for the Cowboys because of their morals, the way they handle business. But you are a fan of the Cleveland Browns, who traded and who employ and who signed a long-term extension with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, who has 24 cases of sexually assaulting women, forcing women into having sex with him after getting massages, a despicable human being. So on one hand, you are upset with the Dallas Cowboy organization for their moral standards, and yet the team you choose to embrace is the team with maybe the least amount of moral standards this side of the Washington Commanders. I'm fine if you don't want to root for the Cowboys anymore. Fuck the Cowboys. Okay, good for you. But your next choice is rooting for the Cleveland Browns after talking about morality, after talking about their stance and you not being with their decision? I'd be all with LeBron James if he didn't say Cleveland, the next word that comes out of his mouth. To me, this seems tone deaf, and this seems like somebody that doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. This sounds uninformed. Pick up a newspaper, read it. That's all I wanted to say about it. But to go from, I'm not going to be a Cowboys fan because of their moral ethics, but I'll be a Cleveland Browns fan because of their moral ethics. Look at what this team's doing. Maybe just be Rob Lowe. How about be like me? Be a fan of the NFL. Don't be a fan of a team. Maybe that'll help you. But look what that team's doing. It's nothing positive. Tomorrow on this fine program, Casey Ward will make his return. He's been off for a long time. We're going to talk about a number of things. We'll talk about the NHL season so far. Casey's a big baseball guy. We're going to talk about the World Series. We'll recap Game 3 tonight. A lot of good NHL games tonight. A lot of interesting games. We got the Rangers-Flyers. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Haven't really watched Philly this year. They've been on to a good I see Kyle in the chat. Can't believe the Packers didn't make a move, trade, or sell. I was just speaking about this, Kyle, because I saw your comment. Completely agree. Chase Claypool should be a Packer, not a Bear. Brandon Cooks should be a Packer. I don't care who it is. You've invested $40 million into Aaron Rodgers. Your salary cap is hell. He's 39 years old. This is it. You're 3-5. You need to make the playoffs and try to go on a run, period. This isn't about next year. This isn't about building for the future. This is about winning right now. Your defense is underperformed. Your offense is underperformed. Christian Watson is not going to be the answer to this team turning it around. He's injured all the time, and he just doesn't look like a very good receiver. Period. The problem, Kyle, with trading Aaron Rodgers is with that cap number. It's so big, and the way it's structured is there's a bunch of so the way it's set up, he's got a bunch of incentives, and he's got a bunch of with the salary cap, it's bonus money is spread out throughout the length of the contract. So it's difficult to trade him because the other teams are going to have to pay him that bonus money, which is all guaranteed, right? And teams don't want to do that. They're on the hook for that, plus his salary cap number, which another risk with trading for Aaron Rodgers is what if he retires next year? Which might sound crazy, but it's Aaron Rodgers, and I can clearly tell you're an NFL fan. This Aaron Rodgers could retire tomorrow. It wouldn't surprise anybody. The guy's completely unhinged. The guy is a wild card of all wild cards. So who knows what is he going to do? So for Green Bay, this is organizational malpractice. They need to make a move. They still have some time. A trade might come in. But you look at the Miami Dolphins getting Bradley Chubb. You look at the Miami Dolphins getting Tyreek Hill this past offseason. And teams have improved their roster. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, who are going to lose the rest of the year, traded for a wide receiver. Why? I don't know. I don't get trading a second-round pick for Chase Claypool, who was a receiver I don't trust nor like that much, and I'm a friggin' Canadian. But Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure, will at practice tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. Jaguars get Ridley for next year, which, hey, it's not the worst move in the world. Get a receiver. Maybe Trevor Lawrence can finally put it together. Doug Peterson in year 2. That team can have some success. But Brandon Cooks is a 1,000-yard receiver 8 seasons in a row, quietly, for Houston, Rams, Patriots. He's bounced around. But 1,000 yards receiving 8 years in a row. That's consistency if there ever was something. He can run a deep ball. Romeo Doubs and Brandon Cooks gives you a shot. Romeo Doubs and Allen Lazard, who's injured. Sammy Watkins, who's old and just isn't that good anymore. Green Bay's going to have to run the football 30 times a game and be a play-action pass team with this group. I see, but you know what? If they didn't want to go get OBJ or Fuller, I mean, they're on free agency. Yeah, I get that, but I can't see OBJ going to Green Bay. I don't think he's going to want to freeze his ass off, Kyle. I love the heat. Who doesn't? That climate, it's so quiet there. I think here's a sneaky little place. The 49ers got a lot of good options. What if they went over the top and got OBJ when he's free? To me, OBJ is going to go to a team with the best record in the best climate. In December, when he's healthy, there'll be a bidding war for him. And I project ahead, I think the Niners are going to be a good team. I don't see Tampa being that great. I don't see Green Bay being that great. Could a 49ers team get him to go? Potentially. Pair him with Debo, Ayuk are all in the field. Bills as well. They should be high. They should be playing really well. 49ers or Bills. I like either one is a good option for him to win another Super Bowl, have a good playoff run, and hopefully parlay that into a long-term extension for next season. Before the season started, my Super Bowl prediction was Kansas City and the Niners. As crazy as this season has been, I'm still fairly confident in my prediction, which I feel good about. I'm glad I didn't pick the Bucks or the Packers, who could still turn it around, but after 8 weeks, it certainly doesn't look great. It certainly doesn't look like these teams are destined for championships and destined for success. I think the Bills will lose, Kyle, to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I do. I I like their team a lot. I think they can get nonchalant a little bit. I just trust Patrick Mahomes more than I trust Josh Allen. And the Buffalo defense is better than the Kansas City defense, no doubt about it. I think Kansas City could have did something today on defense. That's something that is a little underwhelming for me. I think they could have used another pass rusher. Bradley Chubb could have been a Kansas City Chief and not a Miami Dolphin. I'll say that openly. That hurts. I would have liked them to see acquire somebody, a difference maker to add to the defense. It looks like they're not going to do that. It kind of looks like Green Bay. They're not addressing a weakness on their team. But I just trust Mahomes in those big moments to win that game because I've seen him do it before where Josh Allen is fantastic. Josh Allen may be the MVP of the league in the regular season, but I just think the Chiefs will do a little bit more to win in the playoffs with their skill position players and just so in a minute, nothing else. But it's like the NHL trade deadline, if you catch my drift there, where it's done at 5 or 4, so for Eastern, but there's always trades that come in at say 4:25 because you got to send it to the league and it has to get processed. So these trades could still be pouring in half an hour's time. And so that it just depends on when they get into the league and when they get processed. So there still could be moves. Actually, before I sign off for the day, I'm going to go and I'll scroll through Twitter right now and see if anything does pop up because it's so interesting. But, here's a trade. The Colts are trading Naheem Hines, a running back, to the Buffalo Bills. Sources tell ESPN. It's Adam Schefter. So Naheem Hines to Buffalo. I like that move again. They get a running back. He's a more of a pass catcher out of the backfield. More depth for them. James Cook is more of a power runner. Singletary's had a positive season. Zach Moss might likely be cut with this move. But the Colts are out of it. They fired their offensive coordinator, Marcus Brady, today. So I like that move for the Bills. I like that. I like that quite a bit. It's not a huge move, but it's certainly I think it's an impactful one to say the least. Also, a report: NFL teams are calling the Lions on running back Jamal Williams. That's a Detroit back. Yeah, I would call too. Great in the red zone, can score touchdowns. But as I scroll through here, nothing on the Green Bay front. Nothing on the Green Bay front. So it's perplexing. It's perplexing to me. So Kyle, are you an Eagle? I see you wrote in the comments, I'm a Phillies fan. Are you an Eagles fan? Because if you are, you must be having a good season. Eagles 7-0. You got the Phillies in the World Series. 3 wins away from a World Series. You could be locked and loaded for a couple championships this year. I don't mean to throw you into oblivion here. Don't mean to jinx you, but you could certainly be in worse places. You could certainly be in worse positions as a sports fan. Yeah, that's wow. I can't believe this Green Bay development and everything in between when it comes to that. Buffalo's adding; they're a team that think they can win. Miami's being desperate. Oh, you're a Packers fan. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. You go with the Packers, and you like the Phillies. Spread it around the country. I'm all for that. Be different than your family, because your family can suck you in. Got a Steelers fan too. Oh yeah, they're having fun this year. Well, there still might be trades. Good to hear from you, Kyle, in the comments. Glad to see you're listening. I enjoy. I'm live every day. Feel free to drop in, leave your comments. Great to hear from you. Glad to see you're on the To The Point train. So I hope to see you again in the comments in the future episodes. Do this every day, Monday to Friday. So be back tomorrow, and we'll talk about the trade deadline. If more comes in, we'll break it down tomorrow. So join me for that conversation. Recap some NHL. We'll talk about the World Series. We'll talk about the World Series Game 3 tonight. Ranger Suarez v. Lance McCullers Jr. in Game 3. So until then, have a great night. Thanks for the follow, Kyle, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. This is To The Point.